So my expectations were that we would see enthusiasm, commitment, new ideas, that we'd see energy, different sort of services. All of that has happened. I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did. It happened before the paper was signed. People were, on the leash, ready to go, really, bursting out to do things differently. And so that was great. And so expectations more than met.
I think what's really, really exciting about IM is that they give an option to the council which wasn't there before. They're incredibly good value for money because they're actually on a cost reduction journey which couldn't have happened had they stayed within the council. They're absolutely focused on high quality services to the most vulnerable people in our society, and it's a not-for-profit organisation which reinvests any surplus into the community itself. So I think that's a fantastic combination for social care services.
One of the issues is that sometimes people associate this in some sense with privatisation, and that becomes one of the concerns, becomes part of the narrative about it. And I think it's very important to see it very differently from that. This is about delivering services differently, and so it's very important to see this as not part of that discussion, which is about who should provide services. The important bit is what the services are. So I think it may well be that organisations, that councils, it's change, there's an awful lot of change going on, and we're all very preoccupied with reducing our budgets at the moment. Maybe that takes precedence in our thinking over finding different models to deliver services which ultimately has the same effect.
The key challenges are really to make sure that you have buy-in from the stakeholders that are involved in the whole organisation. So for an adult social care organisation from a council, that means that you have to have buy-in from your staff, of course, who ultimately are going to be co-owners of the organisation. You have to have buy-in from senior management in the council, you need to support this whole process. You need to have buy-in also from the politicians, or ultimately have the yay or nay say to the whole venture. And you need to have buy-in from other stakeholders, such as, of course, service users and families and carers, who ultimately are the receivers of this service. In addition, it's really important that you have the passion and drive to make this a success. Because this is a lengthy process, it's quite a big adventure, there's a lot of unknowns in it, and without that passion and drive, it's unlikely to become a successful project. And finally, it's important that you get through the whole viability assessment of the venture. Make sure that you've got absolutely assessed whether this will stack up financially, so that you don't put the service at risk ultimately.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm most proud of is actually, the fact that we got to our launch day and we did it on time, and the launch event that we had was an immensely proud moment, I think, for all of us. It was, it's a massive achievement to do what we did to launch the enterprise, and also it was a gigantic team effort. So I'm incredibly proud of all of the staff, that particularly the close staff team that worked with me, the senior management team. Everybody raised their game. Everybody did. We learned new skill sets that we didn't know that we would do. And so I think that's the thing that I'm really, really proud of. I think the lows for me are really just the sheer amount of time that it takes. It's a long journey, and you're doing it alongside your day job. So everybody's doing it alongside their day job. So people do get exhausted. There are some times when people, get just really kind of low. And you need to have a strong supportive team to support each other to get through those lows and to recognise those. And also, I think, don't leave your frontline staff behind, because you're doing an awful lot of stuff that you're maybe doing behind the scenes. You're working really hard in your respective kind of councils, but actually to frontline staff, it often seems like there's nothing going on. It can be a bit like Groundhog Day. If you've seen that film, you can go round and round in a circle, and people will just think, you know, well, what's happening here? So I think those are the things. Yeah, launch day was absolutely fantastic, and it's just the sheer length of time that it takes.
I think the biggest challenge is indeed changing the way that people think within the organisation. I think they obviously have a culture that has been in place for some time, and I think the really big challenge is to get people to think differently about how operating in a new and different environment is going to be for them.
Well, change for a start, that always makes life more difficult. We've had some technical issues in setting the company up, making sure that we elegantly steered the path between procurement law and other things that perhaps we might have wanted to do. We've had to deal with issues around VAT and all that corporation tax, things that councils don't normally have to tackle. But candidly, set against the establishment of the company and having the option of this kind of high quality provider in the marketplace, it's really been worth it.
I suppose start with a due diligence process. We need to understand the scope of the project. In this case, it involves services, people, and we need to understand the implications of moving a group of people and a group of services outside the county council's control. And a whole list of things will fall out of that, and they will extend to contracts with third parties, buildings, and obviously I've mentioned the services.
Well, building a financial model is all about trying to project what the incomes and the expenditures are going to be going forward for a number of years. You can never get it completely right, but if you build it on the activity that you have at a certain time, then it at least shows that your activities at that time are sustainable, and that then provides a good base against which you can plan future developments. So it's really important to get a good understanding of what the incomes and expenditures are at the time that you go live. That's quite difficult because the goalposts tend to move quite a bit while you're actually negotiating what services are being transferred and which staff are being transferred with them. So that's the first point. And then how do you make sure it's sustainable? That's really about looking at what's going to be happening to your incomes over a period of time. For instance, at Independence Matters, we knew that Norfolk County Council would want to be saving money on its expenditure on our services. So we needed to look at seeing if we could find additional sources of income and also looking to see where we could make savings in expenditure so that we actually had something that looked sustainable in the longer term.
What worked well with our programme was that there was a process of learning. So we ran a number of workshops, we supported the managers, we ran these things called feasts where we took up to about 100 people and discussed and explored what it meant to becoming commercial. What we noticed was that from the first feast, the ideas tend to centre about nerves around contracts and what it meant to be separate from the council, and to the last feast where people were talking about the possibilities and the ideas, and there was much more energy in the room for the spin out because people were beginning to see actually this is a reality and this is going to happen. That worked supremely well. I think what was a struggle is the change, and I think any organisation will struggle like this when they're separating from a bigger organisation, is that actually letting go of council procedures and values, and operationally councils are quite bureaucratic and heavy on the management. There's a lot of management tiers. So if you're an independent organisation, you can get projects up and running super fast. If you're a council, you have to get it checked because of your public service role. And that is a significant change, and I think that slowed down some of the learning because if a manager's got a great idea, they've got to get 4 or 5 levels of management to buy into it before they can make it work. that area needs to be speeded up for people spinning out of local authorities. And Norfolk County Council were superbly supportive of Independence Matters, and Independence Matters leadership worked hard on those relationships. Had they not, I think they would have struggled to spin out as quickly.
It's important for a spin out to create a marketing strategy and really get a strong marketing function. They're a business like any other. They're entering a commercial world where they're going to face competition from all sorts of different organisations. They also need to make sure they don't create a Me Too brand, that they're building something really special and distinctive, and also a brand. They have an opportunity to create a values-based brand that really reflects how they want to do business and how they want to bring about social change, as well as just delivering a service. I think it's important for any organisation, spin out or not, to have a strong in-house marketing function. Yes, they do need to recruit a marketing manager, and what we did in the Independence Matters case was to work with them to upskill internal members of the staff team who had been involved in building the brand from the start, and really to start to get them to think how they wanted their marketing department to be, how they wanted to interact with the wider business, because marketing can't act in isolation. It needs to have input from colleagues right across the business. And a lot of the work was about upskilling members of the Independence Matters team to be a strong, vibrant marketing department in their own right.
But I think the first thing is you've got to have strong leadership within the organisation you're spinning out. I think that Sarah Stock and her team have absolutely demonstrated that. You've got to have people wanting to take this on. It takes courage, actually. It's not an easy thing to do. So you need organisational courage, but you need leadership and courage from the people wanting to do it, and commitment. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You need support, and we benefited from the Cabinet Office support in this. You need support, advice and challenge. You need strong project management. I think if I were to take away one thing, I think I probably underestimated some of the complexity of the decision making around the process like this. And I think if I were to do it again, I would have started earlier getting my head around exactly how the decisions were going to be made and exactly what those decisions were.
I think there's two things really. One would be on a personal level. So from a personal point of view, it's about, I guess, the things that I can do. So I've learned a lot about myself in terms of, you need to be very self-sufficient in order to embark on this journey, but you also need to be very much a team player and a strong leader. And then also I think the wider thing that I've learned is just the welcoming nature of the social enterprise world. There's a lot of people out there who have already done this, who have been on the journey before you. So for me, it's about, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can go and talk to other people about it. People have done it before, and people will be very willing to share things with you. So I think those are the two main things that I've learned. I think the advice that I would give to people is, one, you need to be very clear about why you want to do this. You don't necessarily have to know how you're going to do it, or indeed what your company is going to look like, but I think you need to be very clear about why you're going to do it. You do need to have or build a strong team around you. I would absolutely recommend getting some external support to do it, because it gives you a whole different perspective on things. And I think the process is what it is in terms of spinning out. And as I say, lots of people have done it before you. But for me, it was very much about, don't underestimate the emotional intelligence that it requires to do it. For me, as the leader of the services in the organisation, it was very much about orchestrating the process. So I was orchestrating everybody to try and get everybody onto the same page, and that is very mentally demanding. So don't underestimate that part of it, because you can get very bogged down in the detail of the process and actually forget about how you win the hearts and minds of people. So just lots and lots of communication. And and orchestrate the process yourself.
I don't see it as letting go in any way, actually. I think this is about us having the right kind of services available in Norfolk for people who need them, and those are services that are being provided by a range of very different organisations, Independence Matters being a key one of them. So from our point of view, we didn't see it as much as letting go, as in a way setting up an organisation that really released energy and enthusiasm and innovation, and we wanted to provide the right services for the future. I mean, key to this, of course, was that the backdrop of this is, substantial pressure on public sector finances. So one of the driving reasons behind this was that we needed to take considerable sums of money out of social care services in Norfolk. We wanted to do that in an innovative way, rather than just see services reduced. So we wanted to do things differently, and this is a really, really good example of how to do things differently.
The spin-out enables you to make a quick, real change. If you are in a council, you can still make some of those innovations. And if you look at county councils, district councils, they have a lot of entrepreneurial people in there, but the infrastructure and the way they're set up means that those people can't be as entrepreneurial as they would be if they were a spin-out. And I think the act of spinning out means that they can get to grip to it much quicker, and they can begin to trade, and they can, their marketing can be different. It doesn't have to fit with the council's guidelines, and they can actually move at a quicker pace. So I don't think it's impossible. People have talked about a spin in, and some local authorities keep trading arms, but there is a bureaucratic process. There's also an accountability to the political leadership, which means that whatever you do internally as a council, it'll still feel slightly council-y, and we'll have to go through those processes. But it's not impossible. But I think spinning out is by far the quickest way of doing that.
Well, they're a tough lot, It's amazing what happens. As soon as someone stops thinking of themselves as being employed by the council, they suddenly become an entrepreneur, which is actually exactly what we wanted. But more seriously, it was very important to ensure that the company could develop over a period of time. We understood it couldn't suddenly go from being in the council to an independent mutual. So the contract was set up and the relationship was set up in a way so that we could support the company, very, very light touch, over a period of about 3 years. And it's worked really, really well.
In this project, the clients were very clear as to their parameters, their red lines, what they were looking for out of the contract. So the lessons really for us were to reflect those requirements in the contract as far as we were engaged. Issues such as possible future redundancy costs, pension liabilities were two of the key financial constraints, and they were worked into the contract necessarily.
We've just launched what we call the Future Matters programme. So the first year, as I say, was very much about finding out how we were actually running the business, lots of kind of stuff that needed to be sorted out. The next 2 years is about looking forward. So we have two key strategies. One is about the business sustainability. So that's about maximising our kind of profit income, making sure we're getting everything in that we should be getting in. One is about cost reduction as well. So now's the time for us to look at the shared support services that we have. Do they represent value for money, HR, ICT, and finance particularly. And then the second strategy that we have is around growth. Now's the time for us to look forward, and I think we're in a very positive position. There's lots of opportunities for us. So I think the future looks very bright for us, so we're all very excited about it.
Well, on the whole, the response from independent spin-outs is that it's really liberating to be able to respond to opportunities that come along and requests from customers that they can really fulfill. Whereas previously they usually find that they're quite restricted in what they can do within the confines of being part of the council. So in that sense, life can be really liberating, and can be liberating also to be able to focus on your service and your service alone. Having said that, of course, setting up an independent company and no longer having the availability of the safety net that a council environment gives you is not for the faint-hearted. So it's really important that you've got the passion, the drive, the commitment available throughout the organization, and especially in your top team. But then life can be very exciting, and I know of no spin-out at all who would rather go back into the council.
Yes, I think it's absolutely essential for a number of reasons. The first one is that, I've spoken before about the need for Norfolk County Council to reduce the amounts it was spending on the services that Independence Matters was delivering. And, because that meant a lower level of income for Independence Matters, one of the things that we could do to actually balance that out was to get more income from other sources. The other reason is that at some point Norfolk County Council will have to tender out the services being delivered by Independence Matters, and if Independence Matters fails to win that tender, then it's out of business unless it's got other business that it's already won in the meantime. So that means that if you're winning new business, then you're reducing the risk of failing to win that main bit of business further down the line.
You need to expect it to be incredibly busy. You're not going to, some people, I think, when we spun out, thought, we've done it. So everybody kind of, there was a danger that everybody would go, whew, there we are, we're kind of there. You absolutely can't do that. You have to just keep on going. And I would liken it in a way to driving a car. You learn to drive, you learn lots and lots of the theory as you're going along, and actually then, particularly in that kind of first 12 months, you very quickly learn how to actually run the business, run the organisation. So, you can't relax, you don't take your foot off the pedal, you forget very quickly about that spin-out process, because you're into immediately raising the profile of your company, networking, thinking about the future. So, you've got to be prepared for that.
I think it's an absolutely obvious thing to do. I mean, particularly for services like this, which we really want to see develop and change, modernise, be much more user-friendly, much more run by the people who use them, and to have the staff who have fantastic ideas and energy, to see that freed, in a sense, from what they might see as the shackles of the County Council. We don't quite see it in those terms, but I think it is about them being able to plan for themselves how services should be developed. So I think it's an obvious route to take. I think we want lots of different organisations, and this is certainly a key one of them.